Interesting, vibrant, historical. Ave Kamarie is complicated. Ave Kamarie is a constant growing entity, even now. I came here basically, I feel, as an answer to a situation in my family. Most people, even in my family, don't even know the story until I think I told my cousins this not too long ago, and they're kind of astounded, even the one that's older than I am. But I am an answer, I suppose, to a question. And the question was, who will make it? Who will be my voice? And as I grow older, I've come to feel that that's even more important. And the person that was asking that question was my sister. Most people don't even know that I had a sister, but I had a sister. And so I'm the answer to my sister. Growing up in South Dallas was quite interesting. It was during the 60s that my family originally moved to South Dallas. My grandmother was already there. My mother wanted to be close to her mother, and so my mother purchased a home adjacent right next door to my grandmother. My aunt was across the street. So we were pretty close-knit there. And growing up in South Dallas was interesting in the part that my parents sent me to a parochial school. All of my associates and neighbors' children, they all went to a public school. And I wanted to go to the public school because everybody on the block was going to the public school. But my parents said, no, you're going to go where we sent you at first, and that was to St. Peter's. And so I had to deal with that growing up in South Dallas, because you always got the thing of, oh, you're one of those parochial school girls. Yes, I was. And so they expected us to be above board and I think gilded with little angel wings, but we were just regular people. So, we had our ups, we had our downs, ins and outs, but it was interesting in the fact that I had to prove myself in so many ways. And so that was the interesting part. The theatrical and modeling profession as it pertains to South Dallas, again, I started out in the 60s. My mother was the head dresser for Kim Dawson. And she and Kim did fashion shows at the Baker Hotel initially in downtown Dallas until the Apparel Mart was built by Trammell Crow. In between that, you had the Merchandise Mart, which was 500 South Irving. When I was about, I would say around about 4 or 5 years old, maybe 6, I went to work with my mother, and there was a fashion show about to take place. I remember the room was extremely cold, and I think I was shivering. And at that time, luckily enough, they were modeling furs. So one of the models noticed that I was shivering, and she took a chinchilla fur and draped me with that chinchilla fur. And then another one, whose name I never will forget it. She was Asian, and it was the first time I ever saw anyone Asian. She brought me a cup of hot chocolate. So I had a cup of hot chocolate and I had a chinchilla on me. I knew then this is what I wanted to do. So from that point on, I just started looking at everything that I possibly could to get into being pretty. I wanted to be pretty, just like, the models were pretty. And so being in South Dallas and being in the 60s, you were limited. You didn't get to do a lot of things that some of the other people in other parts of the city got to do. I mean, think about it. A little black girl in South Dallas going to be a model? Think about that. Let alone doing some acting. So I started doing other things at the school that I went to at St. Peter's. We had wonderful, wonderful nuns that taught us theater. And we were performing at an early age, plays and things of that nature. So the bug hit me, and I knew that I needed to get that feeling of, okay, I'm pretty, and I can show people that I can do this and I can do that, and I can make them laugh and I can make them smile, or make them cry or whatever, it was important to me to be able to have that kind of a feeling, that feedback come to me. So I just started taking the skills that I learned from the nuns, believe it or not, and putting it forth and doing other things. So at an early age, I was doing little plays and things when my parents would send me on summer trips to where my aunt lived in Dawson, Texas. I think it was a talent show. And I actually, during the talent show, I did the can-can. For a talent show in the first grade. Think about that. So there you go. The South Dallas part of it, I remember being asked to go to, it was a play at Madison when I was growing up. And I noticed that nobody was paying attention to the actors on stage up in Madison. And I'm like, what's really happening? Whereas I came from an environment when I was at St. Peter's, if somebody was having a play or you were a participant in the play or even in the audience, you knew everything that was going on. You could hear the actors' voices and all of that. So it was a mixture of different worlds to me. You know, I had that particular example, and then I had the example of, going and listening and being a part of the school that I went to. So I had to learn how to mesh that and be able to walk in both worlds. I think it was probably one of the best educations I could get, though, because it showed me a lot of things. It showed me how to be able to adapt. And I think it's the adaptability that made me feel comfortable, regardless of where I was. One of the earliest memories I have of the music hall at Fair Park, I remembered from 61, 62 is when we moved out to Fair Park area. At that time, there were homes not that far from here where we have mostly the parking lots and everything. City took the parking lots, took the homes, and that's a long history in Fair Park about the eminent domain situation that they had with the Fair Park homeowners. I had even a couple of friends to lose homes over here. But prior to that, there were homes over there. And my father used to cut through the Fair Park. You could do that to go all the way over to Perry on his way, taking me to school and him going to work, because he worked in Old North Dallas, Leonard Street. We would pass and I would see this statue that's out there, the fountain of the angel and the water and all of that. In the wintertime, it froze over. And I always wondered what that building was. Fast forward, I would think right after we moved out here, one of the nuns arranged some kind of way for us to have a field trip. And at that time, the Dallas Opera performed here at the music hall at the Fair Park. And that was my very first time seeing opera and being exposed to opera. And it was, for lack of a better way of saying it, it was the closest thing to me to coming to I guess you could say, otherworldly or spiritual experience. I loved every single minute of it. I loved it. Performing there on our stage at school, it's a different story. I mean, you got a little bitty school, you got a little bitty stage, didn't even have stage lights. We were just there, all right? But coming to the music hall, going up those stairs, all of that beautiful red carpet, seeing those beautiful red seats. And we were, I remember, in the balcony part of it, looking down to the stage. I don't know if we were in the balcony part because at that time, because of segregation or whatever, or they just decided to put us up there. I don't know. But all I remember is we were in the balcony. I remembered seeing the wood on the rail and everything, and just looking down there and watching those singers with the costuming and everything. And I'm like, I could do this. I could do this. I could easily do this. And that was like, I was 5th, 6th grade, something like that, I believe. But it was a spiritual experience. It was. I was exposed to the union, but I didn't know anything about the union until I found out about the union after the opera. And I actually did not join the union until 2020. I made it a point of, when I started working connected with the union, is every bit of information that I can get, I try to pass that information on to new people coming in so they will be interested in working the union. I believe 100% in the union, first of all. Working at the music hall, I've been extremely blessed. And I'll say every person connected with the music hall, they've always been friendly, professional, helpful, and when I'm saying helpful, they would teach you, not throw you into something and think, okay, fine, you can sink or swim. Because I've been in situations like that in corporate America when I was working in corporate America, and I swam. With the music hall, again, maybe it is, I guess you could say kismet to a certain point, because I feel like I'm at home at the music hall. From that time that I was a youngster being here and then to be working here, it's even more of a blessing. And my goal that I've set for myself as an individual and being a bona fide union member presently with my local IATSE is to make sure that I pass that information, every bit of information I can on, because there's some other little Black kids out there and Latin kids out there and maybe little white kids out there that they don't have the information. Now, I'm standing to reason in South Dallas, I'm going to lean more towards my own, being the little Black kids. And I want them to be able to not only come and enjoy the shows, understand what's happening, because everything is opened up so much. I mean, look at all of the wonderful musicals that are out. Every particular spectrum you can think of, musical theater, let alone drama, everything. So film, there's just so many areas that you can go into, and a lot of them don't understand. You don't always have to be in front of the camera. You don't always have to be on the stage. It takes, as they say, a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to put on a production. Trust me, a big village. If we can make sure that we've got quality people being trained at an early age, being exposed correctly, not just getting the words thrown at them. Well, this is what you do. No, you teach them. You go along and you guide them and you teach them politely and kindly and make them want to be a part of the theatrical community. Because it's a family. It's a family altogether. And right now it's being attacked. So that's my viewpoint on that. Well, I've had several workshops, and I can tell you that this is my viewpoint. I don't know everything. I stay in my lane. I know what I can do. I know what I can teach. I know what I've learned, and I know how to pass that information on to someone else. A wise instructor learns from their students. There's always something to learn, first of all, and you have to be open to that. What I do in my workshops, and I have done, not only do I teach what I know, which is, of course, makeup, I teach some costume design and some theory in terms of the history of basically African being the originator of makeup. And most people don't like to deal with that. But I deal with that because we have a very rich history when it comes to the application of cosmetics. Okay? So I do that. But I also pull in other people that are experts in their field. When I had my studio over at the Continental Gin Building, I pulled in a gentleman by the name of Robert Knox, who was basically the last student of one of, and I forget the name, so that's not my field, but one of the originators from England that taught design, theatrical design. I brought Robert in to teach a class connected with theatrical design, all right? He brought his sketches and all of these things and just blew the students that were there, their minds completely, because Robert can go on. I have brought in people that talk about finance. I wish I'd have had somebody to tell me about finance early in life. A lot of artists don't go into that because we're into the aesthetics. Creatives don't go into that. But if you don't have like some basis of finance that you can lean on, especially when times are hard or a little lean, you're messing yourself up. Basically, you're out in the cold. You have to know how to disseminate and to delegate. And so what I have prided myself on basically is I try to find other individuals that are interested in teaching and passing on their information in life history. What feels different about South Dallas when I was coming up is I think I started out with 3 words. One was interesting, and the last one, if I'm not mistaken, was historical. I'm going to lean on the historical. Historically, when I was coming up, there was pride, and a whole lot of pride. I'm seeing a resurgence of it in some areas, but not in all areas. At the present time, I would say it depends on your leadership and your representation of the area. And I'm going to go back to the city on this. In my opinion, we have a very good representative, council person, Councilwoman, the former Councilwoman Diane Ragsdale, a proponent of South Dallas. Right now we have Adam, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Bazula, that is our representative now. But we've had some that weren't totally interested in South Dallas. There's a saying, the body can only follow the head. If the head's not together, then the body can't do a thing. So when you've got people that are promoting South Dallas, that are looking for more business leadership development in South Dallas, and at the same time upholding the history of South Dallas, because South Dallas has a very rich history, then that's a different story. But when you've got people that are basically not really interested in South Dallas, but only for the monetary reasons, what they can get out of it at that time, you got a problem. I would like to see more, I would say, businesses move over here where you don't have as many food deserts in this area, where you've got more venues outside of the cultural center and some other venues opening up. Dallas has a history of being pretty. I used to say Dallas loves steel and glass, but in terms of like buildings that had history to them, they don't do anything with them except tear them down and put up an apartment or put up a parking lot or something like that, or high rise. There's a building right now that's on the corner of, if I'm not mistaken, Robert B. Cullum and Pennsylvania. It used to be the old Bama Pie Company. Do you realize all the things that could be happening with that building? And there are others. Building on 2nd Avenue that has a history. I meant, it was at one time, I think it was a fabric mill or something. I forgot what it was. I'm just wanting more younger people to come in of color and start to working and building this area even up more so. There's a building right now on Fitzhugh, and it's been a couple of things. The last thing I think it was a funeral home, and it's just sitting there. I would just hope that more youth and developers come in and actually make it viable for the community. What I would like to see is people that will reach out to the community and get input from the community to get the community involved in building up things and making this basically not so much as back like it was, but even better, if that makes sense. That's what I'd like to see. I love South Dallas because it's got soul. I love South Dallas because it's got history. I love South Dallas because it's beautiful. And I love South Dallas because it has future. That's it.